Thank you. Layla Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Dowd. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I, for one, am so grateful for this opportunity to debate this issue and for the petition for giving us the time. Because this government may not be interested in the damage that they're causing to so many, but clearly the public is, including, unsurprisingly, Oxford, West and Abingdon. When we were top 10, I have to say it did not necessarily come as a great surprise. And I can fully understand why. Because however way you cut it, this government's botched deal with Europe has been an unmitigated disaster for this country. It has made the cost of living worse for every household in Britain. It's the reason why we are in the relegation zone for global growth in league tables for developed economies, behind Russia, and it's made all of us poorer. And we see it in our supermarket shelves, which at points were empty. The Prime Minister, when I asked him about this, blamed the weather and the war, but he couldn't answer why they haven't had the same problems in the European Union, and there's an obvious answer for that. The fishermen and the farmers who are tangled in red tape, they used to just have to complete one step in order to export their produce to the EU, and now some face 21 stages. We see it in the NHS and social care. There's fewer doctors, nurses, care workers, dentists. In Oxfordshire, 10% of our workforce came from the European Union. Countless of them have left, and that is repeated across the country. But above all, it's the small businesses, and I'm also a member of the UK Trade and Business Commission, a poor member, I should say. I don't go as often as I'd like. But every time that I have gone and I read the reports, it's small businesses that are really hit the most. And it's obvious to see why. The British Chamber of Commerce membership survey showed that more than half of respondents were facing difficulties in adapting to the new rules because they are complex, they're changing, and they just don't have the resource to do it. But the impact, and as important as the economy is, and it's desperately important now, aren't just economic. It's also stopped collaboration. And because that's what the European Union was always about. It was about pooling our resources, collaborating with others, sharing ideas, and nowhere, and I say this as a former science teacher, was that more important than in science. Because what has happened, and it was never just about the money, what it's done is it's stopped that crucial collaboration with European partners. For example, to do the research to beat cancer, because the government didn't seek associate membership of the Horizon scheme at the point of the deal. And it's also students who are missing out in that formative exchange year, with the government's bargain basement replacement being underfunded by well over £20 million compared to the final year that we were in Erasmus. And to the punters who are looking forward to watching German punk band Trigger Cut, I can only apologise, because that band was turned away at Calais thanks to the government's red tape and not having the right paperwork. And yet this government's fingers are in their ears. Despite all the extraordinary damage, this issue has become the elephant in the room of British politics. They just don't want to talk about it, and that's why this public inquiry is so important. Because if we're going to move on, and no one here is trying to prosecute the arguments of the past, we are where we are, regrettably, but we are where we are. If we don't cool-headedly look at what's happened, then how on earth are we going to repair it? But rather than try and repair it, this government seems intent on making it worse. We thought that the Windsor framework actually was a moment of pragmatism from a government that, until that point, had chosen to use Brexit as a stick to revive their dwindling poll ratings, trying to sow division when actually they should be looking for pragmatic solutions. And it gave me some hope that we were moving on and the government was going to lead from the front. Well, that seems to not have happened. Because since then, the road to Horizon Europe is now open and the ministers are stalling. And I sincerely hope the minister does address that point. Why is our government stalling when there is no reason at all why we can't rejoin Horizon Europe? Time is of the essence. I've spoken to researchers who are looking at where we are now and making decisions about the next academic year. It's happening now, and we need answers immediately. And then there's the retained EU law bill, which is frankly a monstrous piece of legislation, one that doesn't threaten the comprehensive trashing of standards in the country on everything from sewage to workers' rights, but one that's also trashing our reputation on the world stage. I was heartened when the government delayed the bill in the Lords, but it's now reportedly back on the agenda, and I give them notice that the Liberal Democrat peers stand ready and willing to do undo as much of the damage that it's going to cause as possible. But the point is, why are we still in damage mitigation? Because it feels like Groundhog Day. And the tragedy is that at a time when we desperately need the economy to grow, ministers refuse to play our trump card, which is fixing our broken relationship with Europe. And that starts with getting real about the downsides. So the Liberal Democrats have a plan. So yes, we do want to seek being at the heart of Europe again. That will surprise no one. But we recognise, and I think many in this room recognise, we're nowhere near it. We have so much work that we need to do before we get to that point. So our plan has 4 steps. The first is the low-hanging fruit, the immediate action that we need to take. We heard earlier from my colleague, the MP for Twickenham, who raised the point around school children, a point echoed across the chamber today. Why on earth can't we have a bespoke scheme for school children on buses? How many of them are going to be an issue for either economy? They're just not. Let's get on with the obvious common sense things that we need to do, and that starts to rebuild that relationship. But then we need to go further in step 2. We need to seek cooperation agreements, a full return to Erasmus+, for example, but also an agreement on asylum, which would make a huge difference to one of the Prime Minister's priorities on small boats. Third, we need to negotiate greater access for our world-leading UK food and animal products to the single market, also known as a veterinary agreement. We need to secure deals on sector-specific work visas, which would benefit, in particular, the NHS, and we need to re-establish mutual recognition of professional qualifications. And finally, as has been mentioned earlier by the member for Leeds Central, yes, we should be seeking membership into the single market. And it might be the single market with the customs union. It will have changed slightly by then. We will have our own deal, but we need full, unfettered access, and that is the only thing that is going to help our small businesses and our economy in the future. And that's a future that I want to see in this country working together, slashing red tape, boosting the economy, easing the cost of living crisis, pooling research to beat cancer, tackling international crime and trafficking, giving young people that opportunity to study where they want. And all of that is on offer. So I urge the Minister and the Government to take it.